Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Awakened Adam's Power. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. This is a story that I wanted to create for a long time, contributing my own touch to the tales of Issei's betrayal. Adán is a character from the manga, Shimatsu no Valkyria. Issei may not have a harem because the woman I plan to give him is worth an entire harem on her own. Issei will be a badass primarily because the power I will grant him is incredibly strong. He will not be a dragon or a demon, he will be a human through and through. I might change my mind about giving him a harem, allowing him to forgive the girls, but that will be explored later. The characters who will betray Issei include Rias, Akino, Kuroka, Lafai, Kaneko, Yasaka, Tiamat, Apis, the adult version, Fem Drake, Fem Valley, Kunu, Gabriel, Penemu, Asia, Rosswise, Zenovia, and Hirina. That's all for now. I may change some things. I hope you enjoy it and look forward to it. The characters do not belong to me, credit goes to their creators. Chapter 1. Betrayals, Tiamat and Valley. Some time had passed since the beast of the apocalypse, Triexa, was sealed away, bringing peace to both the human and supernatural worlds. However, everything was not as it seemed. If you asked Issei, he would initially say that he was happy having gotten engaged to the women he loved, including his rival Valley Lucifer. The most beautiful angel in the sky had fallen for him, captivated by his kindness and heart. Most men would say that Issei was just a lucky guy, but what they didn't realize was that having so many women was not easy even for him. Gradually, Issei began to distance himself from them without noticing. He sat on a bench in the park where he had first met Rias, feeling the weight of his thoughts. He lamented the distance he had created, wishing to mend things now. The pain was evident in his expression. In a flashback, Issei was on his way to visit two of his partners, the dragonesses Valley Lucifer and Tiamat, the dragon queen who resided in Tannen's territory. Tannen, a friend of Issei, teased, asking if his dragoness liked him. It was clear that the three had been spending time together, their expressions revealing their familiarity. Valley playfully insisted that she wanted attention too, while Tiamat claimed him for herself, excitement evident on her face. Caught up in their pleasure, they didn't notice Issei's arrival in the territory. Issei, holding 2 tickets to a movie premiere, hoped to surprise them. As he approached the house, he heard unexpected sounds coming from within. He thought he had come at the wrong time, realizing the girls must be preoccupied. Tannen, unaware of Issei's presence, boasted about his skills compared to Issei. Issei recognized the voices of Valley and Tiamat and, feeling a mix of fear and dread, approached the door. When he opened it, he found the room empty, but the sounds grew clearer and louder. Valley's voice echoed with excitement, urging for more. Issei's heart sank as he climbed the stairs and witnessed a scene that shattered him. He stood in shock, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. Both Valley and Tiamat were stunned to see him, their expressions a mix of surprise and guilt. Tannen tried to explain, but Issei lowered his head, his hair partially obscuring his eyes. Valley pleaded for him to let them explain, but he turned away, unable to bear the sight any longer. Tiamat begged him not to leave, wanting a chance to clarify. Issei shouted that if they didn't want to be with him, they should have just told him. Valley and Tiamat were taken aback. Issei had never spoken to them like this before. Valley attempted to explain, but Issei interrupted, acknowledging his mistakes. He knew he had neglected them and hadn't treated them as they deserved, but that didn't excuse their actions. Both dragonesses were on the verge of tears, understanding that while Issei had not been perfect, he had never acted with malice. Issei expressed his hope that they would be happy together and, in a moment of heartbreak, tore the tickets in half. As he quickly spread his demon wings and flew away, tears streamed down his face, leaving the girls alone with Tannen. Tannen reassured them that Issei would eventually find out the truth. Tiamat cried, while Valley, holding on to her pride, simply nodded in agreement. Without Valley and Tannen noticing, Tiamat picked up the torn tickets, realizing the significance of what Issei had done. She fell to her knees, overwhelmed with emotion, understanding that he had known all along and that they had hurt him deeply. Valley approached Tiamat, concerned about her state. Tiamat revealed that Issei had discarded the tickets for the movie they had insisted he attend with them. Valley was left speechless, realizing the gravity of their betrayal. Tiamat, with tears in her eyes, expressed her frustration, calling Valley foolish for believing she had forgotten about him. She explained that her hard work was meant to provide for them, not to push them away. Valley, overwhelmed with emotion, simply cried. Tiamat acknowledged that she didn't deserve forgiveness but vowed to earn it, encouraging Valley to stay if he wished. Meanwhile, Issei was flying back to Japan, hoping that the painful events would not repeat themselves. However, fate seemed intent on testing him further. After a bitter moment, Issei soared through the skies, tears streaming down his face as he recalled how two of his wives, Tiamat and Valley, had betrayed him. He had worked tirelessly to secure tickets for a movie they had all wanted to see together, but his perceived indifference had led them to make choices they would soon regret. In a bar, Kuroko was with a half-eagle yokai who seemed infatuated with her. He urged her to share a drink with him, and despite her initial hesitation, she eventually accepted. As the night progressed, Kuroko, feeling tipsy and frustrated with her own husband's neglect, vented her feelings about him to her companion. She wondered if he still loved her. Tobi, the yokai, reassured her that she was not alone and would always have his support. In a moment of impulse, Kuroko kissed Tobi passionately, and she playfully invited him to her home, suggesting that her husband would not be coming back. Tobi, charmed by her, agreed to her invitation. Meanwhile, Kunu and Kaneko were sharing tender moments with a boy they had known for some time, both feeling drawn to him. They decided to embrace a polyamorous relationship with him, expressing their feelings openly. Damien, the boy, promised to cherish them and vowed not to neglect them as their previous partner had. As the three of them headed to Kaneko's room, they passed by a room where Yasaka was with another man, lost in pleasure. Unbeknownst to them, Issei had entered their territory, seeking solace after the painful betrayal he had experienced. He rushed to Kuroka's home, knowing she was the closest to him among the yokai. However, upon arriving he heard her voice, filled with joy, and realized what was happening inside. Issei quickly deduced the situation and felt a wave of despair wash over him. He left a heartfelt letter and a black cat collar at the door, expressing his gratitude and love for Kuroka, while apologizing for his shortcomings. He took off into the night, feeling a sense of dread about what he might find with his other wives. As he flew, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed them and that they deserved happiness, even if it meant being with someone else. He feared that his other wives might have made similar choices and hoped that at least one of them would still be waiting for him. Issei felt utterly shattered, realizing that he had lost all of them. The trio from the church had each begun relationships with 3 red angels, deepening his despair. Gabriel, too, had suffered, feeling abandoned after hearing hurtful words exchanged between Valley and Tiamat. This led her into a deep sadness, making her vulnerable to another angel who took advantage of her heartache. Drake and Ophis had gone to a dimensional rift, ostensibly for important matters, but it was really to spend time with the great red dragon, with whom they had developed feelings. Rias, Aquino, Penemu, Ravel, and Lafai had also found themselves in new relationships, with Rias falling for a high-class demon who treated her like a treasure, unaware of the darker side of Issei that had once captivated her. Aquino and Penemu, however, had a special bond with the Grigori, navigating their own unique challenges. Issei had wanted to wait for the brown-haired boy, but during a night of revelry with Azazel, he found himself unable to resist a night of indulgence. However, everything changed when the brown-haired boy arrived unexpectedly, overhearing everything that had transpired at the fallen Penemu's home. Issei sat slumped against the door, his eyes swollen from crying. Only Lafai and Aquino remained, and he prayed they hadn't succumbed to the same fate. Aquino had started a relationship with the son of a friend of her father. He, like her, had a penchant for pain, and Aquino claimed she enjoyed her time with him more than with the brown-haired boy. Lafai, on the other hand, had fallen for a sorcerer. What began as friendship blossomed into something more when she recognized the young mage's talent and the affection he showed her, leading her to give him a chance despite being married to the brown-haired boy. Issei, alone in the park after witnessing everything, cried out in despair, questioning why this had happened to him. A voice echoed in front of him, calling him pathetic, reminding him that he was the successor of the man who had subdued the one who was never subdued. Despite being injured, Issei managed to stand up and prepare for a fight, sensing that this being was not friendly. The figure reassured him that it would not take long, and suddenly many beasts emerged from portals created by the individual. Issei, though no longer the Security, declared that those creatures would not intimidate him. However, before he could react, one of the beasts struck, causing him to cry out in pain as he felt a sharp pain in his arm. He fought back as best he could, concentrating enough to begin following the movements of the beasts. But another creature attacked, causing him to feel desperate, vowing that he could not die there. The beasts lunged at him and he felt overwhelmed. The voice taunted him, saying that no one would hear his screams, that he was alone, just as he had always been. That was the last thing Issei heard before succumbing to darkness. The savior of the world, the one who had defeated Thryaxa, had fallen. In the shadows, a figure remarked that they had dealt with the nuisance, and another responded, praising Loki for finding amusement in the situation. Loki chuckled, noting that it was the first time his joke had been appreciated, while the other insisted he be quiet. They continued to discuss how, with Issei out of the way, the original gods would face no competition. In an unknown place, the former brown-haired boy felt nothing but a sense of floating. He could see blurry shapes and sensed another presence nearby. The voice commented on the brutality of his death, and Issei managed to ask if he was dead. The voice confirmed it, adding that he had been killed by an original god. Issei, feeling a mix of confusion and concern, asked who the voice belonged to. The voice explained that it was a long story but that he would need a body first. Suddenly, a blinding light appeared, revealing a young, handsome man with blonde hair and striking blue eyes. The figure apologized for giving him this body, explaining that it was the only one he could create. Issei was astonished and asked how this was possible. The voice, now identified as Adam, introduced himself as the original man, the most hated by the gods and the father of humanity. Issei was taken aback, realizing Adam was the one from the biblical tales. Adam clarified that the stories were not entirely accurate, defending Eve and expressing his frustration at how she had been portrayed. Issei, still grappling with the information, asked what had really happened. Adam offered to show him, and the dark place transformed into a beautiful and peaceful landscape. Issei was captivated by the sight of Eve, who was even more stunning than he had imagined. Adam cautioned him not to be deceived by her beauty, emphasizing that her heart was far more beautiful. Issei, curious about the serpent's actions, learned that it had caused Eve to cry, igniting a deep anger within him. He vowed to destroy the serpent, feeling a strong connection to Eve's pain. Adam shared that he had faced many challenges alone, revealing that his unique ability allowed him to copy movements and anticipate attacks. Issei was impressed, realizing that the original man was far stronger than he had expected. Despite the strange familiarity he felt with Adam, he chose to focus on the unfolding events, eager to learn more about what had happened next. Adam was determined to stop the serpent from harming Eve again, and this time he would not allow it. After that, he and Eve set out to create a new paradise together. Issei was astonished. The orb that spoke to him was the original human mentioned in the Bible. Adam needed Issei's help. In the past, millions of years after Adam's death, the original gods sought to destroy humanity, his children. He would not allow that to happen. Thanks to a Valkyrie, his children had a chance to save themselves. As one could imagine, he did not need to be asked twice to enter the tournament of 13 gods versus 13 mortals. He gave everything in his battle against Zeus. They had just come off a defeat, and he had witnessed the loss of many of his children. Despite that, he pushed forward. Issei noticed how Adam's voice trembled, hinting at the pain he felt despite his calm demeanor. Adam had lost and died, but at least his children had won, and the original gods were eliminated. However, they did not respect the rules of the tournament and were now regenerating. The one who attacked Issei was the original Loki. This made sense to Issei as he recalled his fight with the current Loki, noting the vast difference between them. But he was puzzled as to why that Loki had called him Adam before he died. Adam explained that Issei was his reincarnation. Issei was taken aback by this revelation. Adam had found the strength to reincarnate after witnessing how the original gods did so, but he wanted Issei's life to be normal until he was needed. Issei felt a surge of happiness at being the reincarnation of a man who had given everything for the woman he loved and his children. Adam asked if Issei could do what he could not and protect his children, to which Issei readily agreed. Adam thanked Issei, and then the luminous orb entered Issei's new body, merging with him. Once the union was complete, Issei's gaze shifted. He now possessed the memories of Adam. He declared that he was Adam and would protect humanity. Issei saw a light appear in the dark place and approached it with a smile, ready to demonstrate the power of a human. In Tokyo, a Nikomata woke up in her bed, unable to recall the events of the previous night. Kuroka rubbed her head, complaining about a hangover. She noticed a figure beside her and thought it was her partner. She remembered their NTMT moments but couldn't recall much else. As she uncovered the sheets and saw her friend Yokai, horror washed over her as she realized she had unknowingly spent the night with him. She quietly slipped out of bed, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe she had betrayed her husband. As she left her house, she was devastated to find a letter alongside the collar she had longed for from Issei. Reading the note shattered her heart, and she cried out for Issei, begging for forgiveness. With the yokai, things were complicated. They faced issues with their boyfriends who had suddenly decided to end their relationships, seemingly hypnotized, only stating that they were going to be with their goddess. Kuroka entered the home of Yasaka and Konu, where Kaneko was staying. She pleaded to know if Issei was there, but only Yasaka was present. Yasaka was furious at the mention of Issei's name, but she was taken aback when Kuroka slapped her hard. Kuroka, with tears in her eyes, scolded Yasaka for disrespecting her husband. They had failed to understand that he worked hard to provide them with luxuries, and she looked at her cat collar with regret. Yasaka retorted that he should not have neglected them. He was their husband. Kuroka acknowledged that they were not better. They had made mistakes when they had the chance. She challenged Yasaka, asking what was going through her mind when she had been with someone who only wanted her for a fleeting moment. How many times had he told her he loved her? Yasaka could no longer bear Kuroka's words, each one ringing true. She had never heard an "I love you" from her lover and began to remember the beautiful moments she had shared with Issei. Yasaka, you look beautiful. I don't care what others think, I will always love you and will always be with you. Yasaka fell to her knees, overwhelmed by her emotions. She stammered, struggling to find her voice. Issei felt a deep sense of loneliness, and he wished he could reach out to his friends. However, their conversation was interrupted when a magical circle appeared before them. Zerchit announced the gathering of the members of the DXD group and the leaders of the yokai faction, calling them all to assemble. The two girls exchanged glances, realizing it had been a long time since they had been summoned, and their hearts told them that the news would not be pleasant. At the meeting, the entire DXD group was present alongside the faction leaders. Rias, noticing Yasaka and Kuroka, who both looked troubled with puffy eyes as if they had been crying, asked about Issei. The other girls, all part of his harem, listened intently. Yasaka replied that they hadn't seen him and had hoped the others would know his whereabouts. Rias understood and inquired about the others. At that moment, everyone lowered their gaze in silence. Lefai mentioned that Issei had left him alone, saying, "My goddess is waiting for me." This revelation surprised everyone, and they echoed similar sentiments except for Kuroka, who knew her situation was far worse. Azazel attempted to apologize to Penemu, who looked more than angry. She warned him never to speak to her again. Meanwhile, Valley remained with the Dragon King, Tannen, primarily for companionship rather than love. Drake and Ophis were devastated. When they confessed their feelings to Great Red, he had coldly told them not to confuse things, stating he only wanted physical relationships and that if they thought he loved them, they were foolish. All the girls, except for Valley, were searching for their beloved brown-haired companion. Despite his distance, they knew he had never abandoned them and that his love for them was genuine. Soon everyone had gathered. Zerchit began the meeting, but someone interrupted, expressing frustration at the delay and boredom. Everyone turned to find the source of the voice. Loki introduced himself, floating before them and declaring himself the original Loki. Odin, confused, questioned how he could be Loki when his son was imprisoned. Loki smugly explained that the Loki they knew was merely a lesser copy of him. As he continued, he shifted the conversation, revealing that they were missing a member. Everyone understood he was referring to the absent brown-haired boy. The girls demanded to know what he had done to their husband, feeling a surge of anger. Loki teased them, enjoying their fear, and promised to show them what had happened to him. He projected a horrifying image of Issei being attacked by monstrous beasts. The girls cried out in despair, desperately trying to save him, but their efforts were futile against the illusion. Loki mocked them, suggesting they seek answers in Olympus, laughing as he vanished. The girls were left devastated, witnessing the brutal demise of their beloved Issei. Penemu cried out in anguish, questioning why this had happened. Rhea struggled to accept the reality of the situation. The despair was palpable, but after calming down, they decided to head to Olympus together for safety. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by a stunning woman whose beauty rivaled that of Eve, making Gabriel and Penemu seem plain in comparison. She asked what they desired, her voice sultry enough to make all the men blush. The girls noticed that she was surrounded by those who claimed to be their boyfriends, promising to always be by their side. The woman introduced herself as Aphrodite, while an older man, nearly decrepit, identified himself as Zeus. Zerchit questioned their identities and the whereabouts of the original Olympian gods. Zeus confirmed that Aphrodite was indeed who she claimed to be, and he was the Zeus they referred to. Odin interjected, stating they were not the gods they knew. Zeus began to explain the history of the original gods, while Tannin expressed disbelief, stating that dragons had been around for much longer and had never known of them. Zeus responded, noting their lack of manners. The arm of Zeus grasped Tannin's face, but it felt different, stronger and more muscular than before. Tannin struggled to break free, but it was futile. He was no match for the old man's strength. Zeus expressed his disdain for those lacking manners and, with a swift motion, ended the life of the Dragon King effortlessly. The onlookers cried out in desperation, calling Tannin's name and wanting to attack Zeus, but an overwhelming aura emanated from him, forcing everyone to their knees. Zeus commanded them to leave his mountain before he lost his patience. For a moment he calmed his aura, allowing everyone to move and flee like cowards. Aphrodite remarked that Zeus didn't seem fond of dragons, to which he retorted sharply, telling her to be quiet and suggesting they finish what they had started. Aphrodite expressed her interest, liking her lips, while Toby, filled with fear, asked when they could proceed. Aphrodite coldly informed him that it would only be when she wanted and warned him to silence himself if he didn't want to face her wrath. Toby fell silent, trembling in fear. The two entered a room and moments later, a feminine voice could be heard, filled with pleasure. Eva awoke from a nightmare, crying out in distress. She had been plagued by this dream for weeks, always witnessing a blonde man fighting an old man, and each time the blonde met a tragic end. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't help but cry like a small child. Her mother, Lisbeth, rushed to her side, asking what was wrong. Eva explained her heartache over the recurring dream, pleading for it to stop. Despite her age, her innocence was evident. Lisbeth embraced her daughter, reassuring her that it was just a dream and not to worry. Eva lamented that the blonde man only wanted to protect his children, burying her face in her mother's embrace for comfort. Lisbeth, noticing her daughter's distress, decided to take her to a psychiatrist to rule out any serious issues. Lisbeth offered Eva some milk and cookies, confused by the depth of her daughter's feelings. Eva accepted, giving her mother a kiss on the cheek, which made Lisbeth blush at her daughter's sweetness. As she prepared the milk, Lisbeth thought about how, despite being known as the goddess of the earth at her school, Eva remained incredibly innocent. After a while, the day passed and Eva attended school as usual. A boy approached her, asking if she would be his girlfriend. Overwhelmed with emotion, she began to cry, thanking him for seeing her as a good match but explaining that she couldn't accept his feelings. It pained her to reject someone, but deep down she felt that starting a relationship would hurt someone she cared about deeply, second only to her mother. As time went on, her friends consoled her, and the other boys nearly confronted the one who had confessed for making the school goddess cry. Andrea urged Eva to stop crying, and after a moment Eva managed to calm down. Later, Eva received the message she had been waiting for. She had earned a scholarship to an academy in Japan called Kwa. Thanks to her personality, she convinced her mother to accompany her. Excitedly, she rushed home to share the news, and they celebrated with cake and orange juice. As night fell, Eva felt a twinge of fear about having the nightmare again, unaware of what awaited her that night. In her dream, she found herself in a dark place. Initially frightened, she soon felt a sense of calm, preferring this situation over witnessing the blonde man's death again. A timid voice greeted her, causing Eva to jump in surprise. The voice reassured her that it meant no harm and only wanted to talk. Eva, still on her knees, pleaded not to be harmed. The voice introduced itself as Eva, sharing that it was the same name as hers. The other Eva explained that she was the one from the Genesis story, and when asked about the forbidden fruit, she expressed her regret for the misunderstanding. She recounted the true events of the Garden of Eden, and Eva felt a wave of emotion, realizing how much Adam had sacrificed for her. The two shared a moment of sorrow, as the other Eva revealed that Adam was no longer alive. Shocked, Eva listened as the other recounted the tale Adam had shared with Issei, expressing her determination to reincarnate until she could reunite with him. Eva marveled at the purity of that love, feeling a sense of joy from the other Eva's devotion to her husband. At last, the joyful voice declared that Eva was the reincarnation synchronized with Adam. Eva, filled with disbelief, questioned the possibility of such a claim. The voice urged her to consider her deep yearning to go to Japan, where Adam was, and how she always rejected any man who sought a relationship with her. Her heart only beat for Adam, and the pain of remembering how she witnessed his demise was evident. Eva, feeling the weight of her memories, agreed to find Adam. Suddenly, a bright light appeared before her and entered her being, restoring all her memories of the moments she shared with Adam and the experiences of her past lives. Eva awoke, gazing at the sky, and promised that they would soon be together again, calling him her husband. In another scene, a young woman pleaded for help, terrified of what was about to happen to her. A demon, taunting her, told her that no one would hear her cries. Just then, a powerful punch struck the demon, causing it to release the young woman. In the first part of their reunion, Adam, now resembling the father of humanity, awoke in the park where he had died for the third time. Noticing his ending, he felt a chill but dismissed it, knowing he needed to find clothing in this world. He stood up and made his way to the nearest store, where the women working there blushed at his presence, captivated by his striking beauty. Adam politely requested some clothing, asking for something not too tight. The woman, flustered by his demeanor, managed to provide him with a long white shirt, slightly oversized blue pants and white shoes. Thanking her, Adam left for home, his thoughts occupied with the only woman he truly loved. Meanwhile, at the airport, Eva excitedly disembarked from a plane, urging her mother to hurry. She was thrilled to be in Japan and determined not to lose Adam again. Both Adam and Eva silently vowed to find each other. Back at Adam's home, he entered to find a gathering of women mourning the absence of Issei, their supposed husband. Rias, in tears, lamented his departure. Adam, unfazed by their presence, sat down as if nothing was amiss. Zerchit, confused, asked who he was. Adam replied that he lived there and questioned the problem. Rias, asserting her claim, told him to leave, but Adam surprised her by stating that he was not the one who had freed her from her commitment. He reminded her of the sacrifices he made to protect them. Drake, the dragon, recognized Adam and was taken aback, believing him to be Issei, whom she thought had died. She attempted to embrace him, but Adam stepped back, expressing his discomfort. Azazel, bewildered, sought clarification, but Adam declared that he wanted them all to leave his home, stating that none were welcome anymore. The coldness of his words shattered the hearts of the women, who could not bear to hear their husbands speak to them in such a manner. Azazel, feeling guilty, quickly agreed to leave with Zerchit. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken emotions as Adam stood firm in his resolve. A voice echoed through the house, and a certain Nikomata recognized the intruder. Kuroka glared at the yokai, a prodigy and one of the strongest beings, as he stepped into the room. Kuroka expressed her frustration at his presence, feeling a mix of anger and annoyance. The Kitsune elder, Yasaka, intervened, urging Kuroka to calm down, reminding her that this was not the time for such emotions. Kuroka took a deep breath, focusing on the one she now viewed as her target. Tobi, the yokai, declared that he would do everyone a favor by defeating the useless opponent and making him talk. The others were furious, wanting to retaliate against Tobi for his disrespect towards Issei. Adán, maintaining a stoic expression, countered Tobi's taunts, suggesting that the yokai only wanted to eliminate him to claim his former wives. Tobi dismissed the accusation with sarcasm, but Zerchit, clearly irritated, demanded silence. Adán proposed a death match, seizing the opportunity to make Tobi pay for his arrogance. Tobi accepted, boasting that he would let Adán strike first, mocking him for being merely human. Adán thanked him, and in a flash, he landed a direct hit on Tobi's face before the yokai even realized he had moved. Adán continued to unleash a flurry of blows at an astonishing speed, overwhelming Tobi. The yokai was sent crashing against a wall, and Adán, feeling a mix of regret and determination, acknowledged that he hadn't wanted to go this far but was ready for the fight. The spectators were left in shock as Issei, now a mere human, had humiliated and defeated one of the strongest yokai. Adán returned to the mansion, asserting that everyone should uphold their promise and leave his home. The girls protested, but Zecher silenced them with a fierce glare, stating that they would respect Issei's wishes and teleported everyone outside the mansion. Rias attempted to reach out to her brother, but she was unable to stop the teleportation. Issei finally severed the ties that bound him to those women, his mind now focused on one thing, Eva. A week passed since Adán had defeated the yokai, and he walked through the streets of Kwa, lost in thought about a certain blonde. Suddenly he heard a desperate plea for help. A demon was holding a girl captive, ignoring her cries. Just as the situation seemed dire, Adán intervened, delivering a powerful punch to the demon's face, causing him to release the young woman. In the darkness of the night, Adán approached the girl, who was crying and confused about the situation. He felt a wave of sadness and anger for what she had endured. He extended his hand, asking if she was all right. The girl recognized his voice and looked up, relief washing over her as she whispered his name. At that moment, The beings created by the biblical God, who had given birth to all of humanity and had been separated for centuries, were finally reunited. Chapter End. Reunion Part 2. A girl walked through the streets of Kwa, hoping to learn more about the city, but her mind was filled with memories of the day she lost her beloved husband. Eva felt tears welling up in her beautiful eyes as she recalled the moments they shared. She wished he had given up rather than face death. She longed to find him, to embrace him, and to feel safe in his arms once more. After a while, as she wandered, Eva became lost in the unfamiliar city, and fear began to creep in. She called out for help, her voice trembling. A renegade demon approached her, captivated by her beauty. He asked if she was lost, and Eva, in her innocence, sought his assistance. However, the demon led her into a dark alley, where he began to invade her personal space. Eva, desperate and frightened, pleaded with him to stop. The demon, consumed by his desires, ignored her cries, assuring her that no one would hear her. Just then, a sudden punch to the demon's face caused him to release Eva. In the darkness, she couldn't see the figure approaching her at first, but as he drew closer, she recognized the man who had come to her aid. He extended his hand to her, asking if she was okay. Eva could hardly believe her eyes. It was Adán, the one she had thought she lost forever. Overwhelmed with emotion, she looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Adán was equally astonished, captivated by her beauty. He stammered her name, and in a rush of joy, Eva threw herself into his arms. They embraced tightly, both fearing that this moment was a dream and that they would lose each other again. Adán felt tears forming in his chest as he held her close. Finally, after so long, they were together again. Eva expressed her relief and joy, crying on his shoulder. As she looked up, she noticed for the first time that Adán was crying too. He apologized, expressing his regret for not being able to protect their children. He knelt before her, a gesture of vulnerability that he had never shown even in death. Eva reassured him, reminding him that their children's victory in the tournament was a testament to their love. They embraced again, both overwhelmed by the miracle of being reunited after such a long time. Adán gazed into her eyes, seeing the beauty of the ocean reflected in them. Eva admired his eyes, which sparkled like diamonds. After what felt like an eternity, they finally shared a kiss, a pure expression of their love for one another. As they calmed down, Adán felt compelled to share something that troubled him. He asked Eva to listen to him until the end, his voice trembling. Though worried, Eva nodded, encouraging him to continue. Adán revealed his life story, including the times he had married and been NTMT with others. Tears fell as he confessed his fears of not deserving her love. Eva embraced him tightly, assuring him that she understood. She knew that he had been in a place where memories were lost, and had he retained them, he would not have acted as he did. Adán marveled at her understanding, pondering what he had done to deserve such a woman. He finally realized she had come back for him, and Eva explained that she had promised to reincarnate as many times as necessary to be with him again. With a smile, Adán stood up, taking Eva's hand as they left the alley together. He spoke beautiful words, promising that this time, they would enjoy the paradise they had created and that he would never leave her side again. Chapter End. The Berserker of Thunder. After a heated discussion with the blonde, the alliances among the factions decided to gather at Lucifer's castle to strategize. However, their conversation quickly turned to one pressing issue. Zerchit, a frustrated Mao, demanded to know what had happened to Issei. Rias hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Rias was at a loss for words, struggling to comprehend how she had deceived the pillar of the factions. Ophis, the infinite dragon, stated flatly that they had tricked Issei, her expression remaining unchanged. Everyone in the room, from the other factions, was both angry and shocked. Zerchit, visibly furious, expressed his disappointment, stating that Issei had given everything for them. He could hardly believe they had done such a thing. Michael looked into his sister's eyes, pleading for her to deny the accusations, unable to accept that his beloved sister could betray Issei in such a way. Gabriel, overwhelmed with guilt, covered her face and began to cry. Baraquil reprimanded Aquino, expressing that her mother would be disappointed in her actions, which he found repugnant. Aquino struggled to respond, her emotions overwhelming her as she too began to cry, feeling alone once again. Odin confronted Yasaka, expressing his disappointment in her for betraying her husband, the one who had healed her heart. For the first time in a long while, he was more than just angry. He turned to Ross, expressing his deep disappointment, stating he never thought she would betray the first man who loved her, especially knowing what had happened to her grandmother. Ross, tears streaming down her face, acknowledged her mistake but insisted that her grandmother should not be involved. Fafnir expressed his disappointment, stating that he had held Tiamat, Ophis, Drake and Asia in high regard, and their actions were not befitting of dragons. He looked at the blonde, declaring that she could no longer use his power as he felt let down. Tiamat broke down in tears at Fafnir's words, but the most affected was Asia, who curled up in a corner of the room, sobbing and mumbling apologies to Issei. Despite everything, both Drake and Ophis remained strong, unwilling to admit their mistakes. Serafal confronted Kuroka and Penemu, questioning their involvement. The two lowered their gazes, knowing that even under the influence of alcohol, there was no excuse for their actions. And so, the leaders realized that Issei, the one who had saved them from an infinitely powerful dragon, had been deceived by those he loved most. The weight of their absence felt heavy on their hearts, but before they could dwell on it, a shocking announcement interrupted them. A demon reported that the seal had weakened. Zerchit, understanding the implications, reacted swiftly. Before they could fully process the situation, Odin received a message through a magical circle, informing him that the original Mjolnir had been stolen. Odin was left speechless. In thousands of years, no one had been able to lift the original Mjolnir, the weapon that inspired the creation of Thor's iconic weapon. Odin questioned how this was possible, noting that even the Great Red could not lift it. The messenger explained that they did not know what had happened but had sent Valkyries to investigate. Zerchit demanded to know what was happening, and Odin confirmed the theft of the original Mjolnir, rubbing his beard in anxiety, wondering who could possibly lift such a heavy weapon. Zerchit offered to help Odin later but insisted they first check the Thryaxa seal before it was too late. He turned to the ex-wives of the brown-haired man, instructing them to come along, but warned that their conversation was far from over. While the others lowered their gazes, Ophis remained unmoved, declaring her intention to see Great Red and opening a portal to the dimensional rift. Drake stopped her, warning that she was being foolish, asserting that he only wanted her for physical reasons and would never truly love her. Ophis brushed him off, leaving the room, leaving everyone intrigued by her attitude. However, there was no time to ponder her actions. They needed to check the Thryaxa seal before it was too late. Unbeknownst to them, the beast had already emerged and encountered a tall, fair-skinned man with striking red hair and penetrating eyes, his scara as dark as night. The creature was taken aback by the massive hammer the man carried, feeling a mix of curiosity and intimidation. Thryaxa demanded to know who the human was, attempting to appear imposing. The man, placing his hammer on the ground, watched as it cracked under the weight. Thryaxa, intrigued, remarked on the toy the boy possessed, laughing sinisterly at the thought of destroying him. "I am the strongest Norse god, seeking someone who can provide a good fight to relieve my boredom before it consumes me. I am the berserker of thunder." As I walked toward Thryaxa, the god of thunder, Thor. Chapter end. The fall of a god and the drive to train. The so-called god and the beast of the apocalypse, the second strongest entity in the world, clashed in a battle of gods. Thor, already proclaimed as such, wielded his hammer, engaging in a fiercely contested fight against the beast. Thryaxa took a moment to distance himself from Thor, acknowledging him. He remarked that the young god was not so bad after all. Thor remained silent, but in his mind, he pondered why there was no one like the one who had finally shown him true happiness. He gazed at the sky, perhaps searching for that warrior, the first to make him serious and managed to inflict damage upon him. Enraged that such a being would dare to ignore him, the dragon god unleashed a powerful strike with his tail, which Thor easily blocked with his hammer, demonstrating his ability to withstand the dragon's fierce attacks without issue. Thor expressed his disappointment, stating that Thryaxa was supposed to be the second most powerful being. He took on a peculiar stance, leaving Thryaxa confused and furious at the words of the so-called god. However, his pride compelled him to face the attack head-on instead of defending himself. Thor declared that Thryaxa should receive the attack that had defeated giants. Lightning began to crackle around both Thor and Thryaxa. Thryaxa, ready to receive the blow, challenged Thor to see if he could back up his bravado. Thor swung his hammer with all his might, sending a massive pillar of electricity soaring into the sky. Meanwhile, the alliance of factions rushed to witness what was happening with Thryaxa's seal. Upon seeing the towering pillar of electricity, they quickened their pace. When they arrived, they witnessed something they never thought they would see. Thryaxa, the most powerful beast who shared the podium with the great red dragon as the strongest being, was defeated. A large hole marred his stomach as if something had pierced through him, and he lay there without an arm, lifeless. As they realized the gravity of the situation, they felt a rain falling, but upon closer inspection they saw it was red. It was Thryx's blood. They observed the scene in more detail and spotted a man gazing at the sky, drenched in the blood of the dragon. To their astonishment, they saw Odin take a step back, visibly shaken. He exclaimed that it was impossible, that this individual was supposed to be dead, his voice laced with sweat and fear. The others were equally shocked to see the father of all gods so frightened. They turned to look at the scene and noticed the man leaving as if nothing had happened. They were left in disbelief. This man had fought one of the most powerful entities in the world and not only defeated him but had killed him effortlessly. Some were so stunned that they fell to their knees. Xerxes noted that Odin recognized the individual. Odin confirmed that they needed Issei because if the new enemy was who he thought it was, they would not survive. This revelation left everyone in shock. Odin decided they needed to return to the castle to inform everyone about who this individual was and the trouble they had gotten themselves into. As Odin contemplated the situation, he cursed under his breath, feeling that everything was going wrong, especially after what had just happened to Issei. Meanwhile, in the streets of Kwa, a couple walked hand in hand. The men felt a twinge of jealousy toward Adam for having such beauty by his side, while the women contemplated how to become Adam's lovers. However, the couple remained oblivious, lost in the joy of being together again. Adam began to speak to Eva as they walked, and she responded with a smile that could melt the Arctic. He suggested that for now they would be boyfriend and girlfriend, and when they were older they would get married, giving her a gentle kiss on the cheek. Eva, slightly flushed from the kiss, noted that they were already married in a way but was curious about the difference between being a boyfriend and a husband. After a while, they arrived at the hotel where Eva was staying. Though it pained them, they had to say goodbye for now. Eva stood at the entrance, explaining that her mother was strict and that Adam could not come in today, but she promised that one day he would. Adam reassured her that now that he knew where she lived, nothing would stop them from seeing each other every day. He gave her his phone number and she added him to her contacts, calling him her paradise. He encouraged her to test the number to see if it worked, and she called him, confirming that she had registered him as her Eden. This made her blush slightly, and they shared a sweet farewell kiss, showcasing their love for one another. However, Eva suddenly awoke with a start, haunted by the trauma of seeing Adam die. She cried out for him, desperately dialing his number, pleading for him to answer. Adam picked up the phone, greeting her with a simple, "Hello?" It was clear that he was asleep. Eva, whispering and trying not to wake her mother, expressed her concern for him, tears streaming down her face. Adán, hearing her cries, fully awakened and reassured her that he was fine, pleading with her not to cry. Eva, still sobbing, asked him to come to her house early the next day so she could be sure he was okay. Adán agreed, but a troubling thought crossed his mind. He blamed himself for her distress, vowing that he would not let this happen again. He promised to master the skills he needed to protect her and ensure she would never cry for him again. The next day, a nervous Adán made his way to Eva's house, anxious about what state she might be in after their painful conversation. The sight of her hurt made his heart ache. He apologized, promising her he would never make her cry again. As he approached, he saw Eva outside. Though she looked a bit disheveled, she was still beautiful. Upon seeing him, she rushed into his arms, expressing her relief that he was okay after having a terrible nightmare. Adán looked up at the sky, feeling guilty for her tears, and explained that his overconfidence had prevented him from training properly. He regretted that his lack of preparation had put her in such pain. Eva, surprised by his admission, playfully scolded him for not giving up when things got tough. She had been deeply affected by the thought of losing him, and her heart broke at the memory of seeing him in danger. She finally expressed everything she felt, knowing that Adán had acted to protect their children, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Adán, looking into her eyes, promised that this time would be different. He vowed to master his skills and ensure that no one would defeat him again. He swore by their children that he would never make her cry again, and with sincerity, he declared that they would live together forever. He kissed her, causing her to blush, but she responded to his kiss, feeling a rush of warmth. Just then Lisbeth, Eva's mother, appeared, teasing them about their budding romance. Eva, startled, turned bright red and asked how long her mother had been watching. Adán greeted Lisbeth casually, which made Eva even more flustered. Lisbeth circled around Adán, commenting on how he had won her daughter's heart, and whispered to Eva that she was glad to see her with such a good boy. She playfully warned Eva not to rush into having grandchildren. Feeling overwhelmed, Eva stammered at the mention of grandchildren. Lisbeth suggested they have dinner together the next evening to get to know each other better, and Adán readily agreed. Lisbeth left them with a playful warning not to do anything inappropriate. Eva, still nervous, asked Adán if he would really come the next night. He assured her he would, but mentioned he needed to buy some new clothes, feeling that his current outfit wasn't suitable. Eva reassured him that he would always look good to her. As Adán prepared to leave for training, Eva expressed her concern about his safety. He explained that a mentor had once told him that mastering his skills would make him a worthy successor. Eva, confused, asked what he meant. Adán shared a past conversation about how he was meant to take over if something happened to his mentor, but he had never taken it seriously until now. He felt a newfound purpose to protect her and everyone else. Eva was taken aback by his revelation, and with admiration in her eyes, she told him she loved him and thanked him as he walked away. Afterward, Adán trained tirelessly from dawn until dusk in a special room in his mansion, replicating the movements and techniques of a training program designed by Zeus. He pushed himself to his limits, recalling the worst day of his life, seeing his children in despair, his wife in panic, and the cries of a baby. The weight of his unfulfilled promise pressed heavily on him, making him feel weak and helpless. Desperation began to take hold, but in the darkness, he remembered something that had once inspired him to achieve the impossible. Adán heard the sound of a baby crying, and he realized he couldn't give up. He had failed once before in protecting happiness, but this time he was determined to ensure that everyone smiled. He shouted into the air, finally discovering the key to perfecting the eyes of the Lord. It required merging his unyielding will with his power. Those eyes, which once sparkled like a star, now shimmered with a rainbow hue. Adán had finally perfected the eyes of the Lord. Meanwhile, Eva felt something unusual in her chest. It wasn't unpleasant, but it intrigued her that she felt such peace out of nowhere. In Olympus, Zeus acknowledged that Loki had failed to destroy something significant. Another figure questioned whether that was truly the case, and Zeus expressed his excitement about the upcoming challenge, declaring it was time for revenge. In a meeting room, the entire group, including the factions, gathered to hear Odin, the father of all, pacing back and forth, clearly troubled. Zerchit, concerned about the current situation, asked Odin about the mysterious man who had defeated Thryaxa. Odin scratched his beard, trying to relax before revealing the truth. He informed everyone that the gods they knew, Zeus, Shiva, Susanoo, and even the biblical god, were merely copies. The revelation shocked everyone, particularly Zerchit, who questioned the meaning of copies. Gabriel, visibly upset, defended her father, but Michael urged her to listen. Understanding her brother's serious demeanor, Gabriel settled down. Odin explained that long ago, true gods existed, beings worthy of their power and arrogance. Among them was Zeus, who had clashed with his father in a battle that resulted in the Big Bang. Beelzebub was astonished to learn that the universe was born from the collision of the most powerful techniques of Kronos and Zeus. Odin recalled witnessing a powerful being easily defeat the Dragon King, surprising him because even the Zeus he knew would have struggled against such a foe. Seraphal asked who had defeated Thryaxa so effortlessly. Odin revealed that it was the original Norse god, Thor. The name left everyone in shock. They knew Thor was strong, but they couldn't fathom him being a match for Thryaxa. Michael questioned why such powerful beings had remained hidden until now. Odin explained that these perfect gods, once thought invincible, had been defeated by humans whom they regarded as insignificant. The revelation left everyone wide-eyed, as it was unimaginable that those gods, who had once humiliated powerful beings, could be vanquished by mere mortals. Odin recounted that these gods had once sought to destroy humanity, believing they were the source of pollution and destruction. However, a Valkyrie chose to support the humans. Ross suddenly stood up, realizing who Odin was referring to. Odin confirmed that it was the legendary Valkyrie Brunhild and her 13 sisters. Together with the humans, they fought against the gods in a tournament called Ragnarok, where 13 humans faced 13 gods. The victor would survive while the loser would face extinction. In the end, the humans triumphed and the original gods vanished. However, of the 13 Valkyries, only the least known survived, and she disappeared after creating replacements for the original gods. Beelzebub questioned how the gods could still be present. Odin explained that they sought revenge, wanting to erase the humiliation of their defeat by destroying humanity, dragons, and all existence. Zerchit saw an opportunity, but Odin warned that the enemies were too powerful, and humanity lacked the support of the Valkyries and the warriors needed to confront them. Zerchit proposed finding that one warrior to help them. Odin revealed that this individual was Issei, or rather, Adán. Gabriel and Michael shot up from their seats, stunned by the revelation. Adán was the subject of disbelief among those present. Odin struggled to recognize him, noting the new appearance, strength and power that Adán now possessed. It was clear that he had transformed into someone extraordinary. Aquino expressed her incredulity, suggesting that Issei was the one who had committed the original sin. Michael questioned what capabilities Adán had that inspired such confidence in Zeus. Zeus promised to reveal something he had recently discovered, something he had not fully understood until now. Azazel, feeling uneasy, asked what was happening, sharing the sentiment of fear that the sight of this being evoked in him. Odin explained that it was Zeus in all his glory, showcasing the power of the original god fighting against the most powerful human that had ever existed, Adán. Rias noted that Adán resembled Issei's new form, while the former wives of Issei blushed, and Asia fainted with a smile upon seeing such a handsome man. Odin emphasized their only hope lay in Issei's assistance, whether or not he was the reincarnation of that man. He believed Issei was the only one who could save them. With their support they could confront the original gods. Everyone nodded in agreement, realizing it was time to do the most challenging part, convincing Issei to help them. In Olympus, Zeus was deep in thought as he observed someone from his vantage point. He contemplated how to weaken the being that had once brought him to his knees. A voice behind him inquired if something was wrong. Zeus replied that he was merely considering how to defeat that man, knowing he possessed such power. The voice playfully suggested that he should come to bed instead of worrying. Zeus, glancing back, expressed his desire to train and perfect his diamond form, but he lamented his age. The playful voice, belonging to Aphrodite, teased him about his laziness. Zeus, known for his immense power, was also recognized for his reluctance to train. He proposed that Aphrodite help him by seducing the man he had shown her, Adán. Aphrodite, intrigued, agreed to the plan but insisted on having Adán as her personal servant. Zeus readily accepted her terms. Confident in her abilities, Aphrodite set off for Earth, believing no man could resist her charms. Meanwhile, in Kwa, Japan, a blond man awoke feeling more at peace after perfecting the eyes of the Lord. However, he felt nervous about what to wear for dinner with his girlfriend. Eva was equally uncertain, trying on various dresses and debating whether to choose something more daring. After showering and dressing in his usual attire, Adán ventured out to find something more suitable for the dinner. His earnings from the now-cancelled series allowed him to live comfortably without working. He entered a clothing store, browsing through various styles while ignoring the admiring glances from women who were captivated by his looks. A woman approached him, seemingly familiar yet unrecognizable. She had an alluring figure and a face that seemed sculpted by angels. Adán, maintaining his composure, asked if she needed assistance. The woman playfully embraced him from behind, causing him to feel uncomfortable. He quickly freed himself from her grasp and turned to face her, repeating his inquiry about whether she needed help. It was Aphrodite and her intentions were clear. Adán felt a presence nearby, and he noticed a beautiful figure circling around him. It was Aphrodite who seemed to be enjoying herself. She leaned in closer, her voice playful as she expressed her interest in spending time with him. Adán, however, remained firm in his stance, reminding her that he was devoted to Eva, his partner, whom he always referred to as his wife, despite their current status. Aphrodite, undeterred, insisted that it didn't matter. Eva would never find out. She liked her lips, attempting to charm him further. Adán, maintaining his resolve, told her that her efforts were futile. Despite Aphrodite's renowned power over men, it had no effect on him. Curious, Aphrodite questioned what made him so special that he could resist her allure. Adán replied simply, stating that his heart belonged solely to Eva. This declaration struck a chord with Aphrodite, who, despite her calm exterior, felt a surge of frustration at her inability to win him over. In a moment of desperation, Aphrodite decided to change her appearance, taking on the form of Eva. She teased Adán, claiming she could be just like Eva. Adán, however, was resolute, telling her that while she could mimic Eva's appearance, she could never truly be her. Aphrodite challenged him, asking what Eva had that she did not. She offered him a paradise filled with everything he desired, but Adán remained steadfast. He declared that Eva had never betrayed him, a statement that hit hard for Aphrodite, who was aware of her own infidelity with Ares, the god of war. Adán continued, expressing that he needed nothing but to be with Eva. She was his paradise, his Eden, and as long as he was with her, everything would be all right. He looked at Aphrodite with determination, firmly stating that she would never be Eva. Aphrodite, taken aback, admitted that she had underestimated him. She had thought him to be merely a fighter, but he was more than that. With a flick of her wrist, she opened a portal, warning him that he would be facing all the gods alone and to not let his guard down. With that, she departed, leaving Adán to ponder the situation. He glanced around the shop, observing families enjoying their time together, a father smiling with his children. In his mind, he envisioned Eva and felt a surge of determination. He knew that with the support of his family, he could stand against any threat from the gods. But for now, he needed to prepare himself for the evening ahead. Chapter 2 Survey. This will be Gear's appearance, and I'm not sure if you want the loli we know from the manga. I will include her in the survey, or perhaps one of her sister's appearances. You know, if time has affected her and she has grown, she might resemble one of her sisters as seen in the manga. Only 3 adult Valkyries have been shown, so I will include those along with the loli Gear. Option 1. Option 2. Option 3. Option 4. Those who want to vote just need to write something like Survey 1. Option 1. Survey 2. Option 3. For example, if I don't see enough support, I will decide myself. Thank you in advance for participating. Chapter End. Encounter among women. A blonde girl was talking to her mother with pleading eyes. Eva clasped her hands together, asking her mother if she could buy a new dress. Lisbeth, with a bead of sweat on her forehead, suggested that Eva wear one of her many old dresses instead, especially for just a dinner. Eva explained that she wanted to look beautiful for Adán. Realizing what she said and noticing her mother's look, she quickly backtracked, her face turning as red as a tomato. Lisbeth laughed, teasing her daughter about wanting to impress her boy. She smiled and encouraged Eva to buy something nice. Eva felt happy that her mother agreed to let her buy a new dress. Gratefully, Eva hugged her mother and with great speed, grabbed her purse and rushed out. Meanwhile, in a clothing store, a red-haired girl stood at the counter, looking somewhat downcast and lost in thought about what had happened. Flashback. In the Gremory mansion, Rias Gremory entered, summoned by her parents. She felt nervous knowing what awaited her. The maids greeted her, but their tone was laced with hostility. The news of how Issei, the hero of the underworld, had been deceived had not gone unnoticed, angering many demons who began to view Issei's ex-partners with disdain. Rias chose to ignore the tension and walked to the room where her father sat with his eyes closed, while her mother hid her eyes behind her hair. Rias greeted them nervously, but neither responded. Suddenly, her mother approached and delivered a sharp slap to Rias's face. This left Rias in shock. It was the first time her mother had reacted that way. Venelana demanded to know why Rias had hurt a man who truly loved her, questioning the kind of upbringing she had received. Rias's parents had loved Issei like a son, fully aware of how much he cared for Rias and how hard he worked to provide a safe future for their children. Venelana continued to express her disappointment, asking why Rias had betrayed Issei. Ciaticos, her father, stepped in to comfort his wife, but he was also furious. He demanded a good explanation for Rias's actions, reminding her that if she had felt lonely, she should have talked to Issei, who worked tirelessly for their family's well-being. Rias began to cry, feeling as if her father's words were piercing her heart. Venelana, deeply saddened, declared that they would no longer support her financially and that she would no longer be the heir to the family. Rias, wanting to avoid further conflict, left what had once been her home. Fortunately, despite their anger, her parents were kind enough to help her find a humble job at a women's clothing store, where she now worked to earn a living. And flashback. Rias looked up at the sky, thinking of Issei, who had now become a blonde. She lamented her choices, feeling regret wash over her. But before she could dwell on her thoughts, a customer entered the store. Rias approached the woman, welcoming her with a bow and asking how she could assist her. The customer, Eva, hesitated before responding. The blonde was feeling a bit shy as she searched for a dress for her first date, recalling that today would be her outing with her husband or boyfriend for now. Rias expressed her excitement about the first date, her cheerful demeanor shining through as she mentioned how lovely the dresses were and offered to help find the right one. Feeling grateful, Eva suddenly hugged Rias but quickly released her, realizing what she had done. She apologized timidly, feeling a bit embarrassed. Rias reassured her that it was nothing to worry about. Together, Rias and Eva began their quest for the perfect dress for Eva's dinner with her beloved, Adán. However, Eva noticed a hint of sadness in Rias's eyes, as if she were suffering deeply, and couldn't resist asking if everything was all right. Rias hesitated but admitted that the past few days had not been good. Eva offered her support, sitting beside Rias and encouraging her to talk about it. Rias revealed that she had made a mistake by betraying the only man who loved her for who she was, and tears began to form in her eyes as she expressed her feelings of unworthiness. In response, Eva embraced Rias, providing her warmth and comfort. She firmly stated that she would never support someone in a relationship who chose to be with another. She encouraged Rias to fight for the man who truly mattered, to show him how sorry she was, and to prove that her heart belonged to him alone. Rias was taken aback by Eva's wise words as she melted into the embrace. Curiosity got the better of her and she asked for Eva's name. Eva introduced herself and Rias reciprocated, wondering what she could do to earn forgiveness. Eva recalled a moment in the Garden of Eden when Adán chose to be with her rather than in the garden, and she advised Rias to do something that would show him how much he meant to her, to demonstrate that her world revolved around him. After some time they found the perfect dress and Eva left to prepare for her date. Despite the kindness and support Eva had shown her during this difficult moment, Rias couldn't shake the feeling of resentment towards her. As she placed a hand on her chest, she pondered why she felt this way, reflecting on the warmth and advice she had received from Eva. Eva had returned home after buying the perfect dress for the evening. Although the dinner would be at her house, she wanted to look beautiful for her first dinner with Adán. She entered and saw her mother preparing the meal they would share with their guests that night. Her mother, Lisbeth, smiled and commented on the lovely dress Eva had chosen while stirring a pot. Eva showed off her dress, her eyes sparkling with hope that Adán would like it. Lisbeth encouraged her to get ready, reminding her that Adán would be arriving soon, and gave her a kiss on the cheek. Eva blushed at her mother's affection and hurried upstairs to prepare herself for Aiden's arrival. Meanwhile, Adán was unaware of fashion trends and simply wore his usual clothes, albeit a bit more fitted. He decided to buy a gift for Eva to apologize for his appearance. As he entered a jewelry store, he was surprised to see Aquino, a half-angel, but she didn't seem to notice him. Aquino, slightly flustered by his presence, asked what he was doing there. Replied that he was just shopping and intended to leave since she was the only one there. Aquino, feeling a bit down, urged him to stay and offered to help him find something nice. Adán agreed but made it clear that it didn't mean anything. Aquino felt saddened by his coldness, missing the warmth he once showed her. She asked if he was looking for something special, her voice tinged with sadness. As Adán browsed the store, he spotted a necklace that held significant meaning for both him and Eva. He pointed it out and Aquino wrapped it as a gift, curious about who it was for. When Adán revealed it was for his wife, Aquino was taken aback, her heart aching at his words. Adán, without looking at her, expressed that he had moved on and that there was no room for her in his heart anymore. He could hear her tears falling as he spoke. That night, when Adán arrived at Eva's house, he was taken aback by her beauty in the dress. Eva, feeling shy under his gaze, asked him not to stare. Adán complimented her, saying she looked stunning and handed her the gift. When she opened it and saw the beautiful apple-shaped necklace, she was thrilled and hugged him tightly, asking him to put it on her. As they enjoyed their evening, Lisbeth playfully embarrassed Eva by showing a childhood photo of her. Eva blushed furiously at her mother's teasing. Later, Lisbeth inquired about how Adán met her daughter, and he fabricated a story about their school days, playing along with Eva's act. Just as they were enjoying their time together, a voice interrupted them, one that Adán recognized. He quickly shielded Eva and Lisbeth, but they were all transported to a different location, resembling a coliseum. Adán cursed under his breath, knowing the trouble that awaited them. Loki appeared, floating in the air, taunting Adán about being harder to defeat than he had anticipated. Lisbeth, paralyzed with fear, instinctively hugged Eva. Loki summoned the same creatures that had once harmed Issei. Adán braced himself as the beasts lunged at him, but this time, he was ready. With a powerful shout, he unleashed a flurry of punches, knocking down several beasts. Loki laughed, acknowledging Aiden's strength but questioning whether he could protect the ones he loved. Loki then created two clones of himself that charged at Adán. When Adán attempted to strike them, his fists passed through as if they were ghosts. Confused, Adán was suddenly hit hard in the jaw, sending him flying. Eva and Lisbeth cried out his name in concern. They shouted at the Hunazino. Loki remarked, expressing admiration for the beautiful women as he approached them. Suddenly a voice rang out. Adam had launched himself forward, delivering a divine axe strike that sent the god crashing against the stadium wall. However, it seemed to have little effect on him. Loki commented that without the Valkyrie, Adam was limited in his ability to inflict real damage, despite using techniques even Zeus would recognize. Loki summoned two giant arms that emerged from the ground, capturing Adam. Adam was taken aback, questioning what was happening. Loki declared that those who died in this place would perish in both body and soul. Eva, filled with panic, rushed toward Adam, fearing she would lose him again. Loki, unnoticed by Eva, sent a weapon flying toward her. Adam shouted in alarm as he saw the weapon heading toward his beloved. In a last-minute effort, Lisbeth screamed as she positioned herself in front of the attack, taking the hit. Loki expressed disappointment at failing but decided to make a spectacle of the moment before escaping. Eva cried out for her mother, desperately asking if she was okay while pressing on the wound to slow the bleeding. Lisbeth, lying on the ground with blood on her lips, apologized to Eva, expressing regret for not being able to stay longer. As Adam approached, Lisbeth thanked Eva for their beautiful moments together, pride evident in her voice. She turned to Adam, asking him to take care of their daughter before fading away completely. Eva's heart shattered as she cried out for her mother, remembering every precious moment they shared. Adam clenched his fists in anger, feeling weak despite his powers, lamenting his inability to protect those he loved. After a few minutes, Eva had calmed down but refused to let go of Adam, haunted by the trauma of losing her mother in front of him. Adam, unsure of what to say, felt he had failed both Lisbeth and Eva. He tried to comfort her, but Eva cried in his arms, expressing her pain and confusion over her mother's departure. Adam reassured her, explaining that Lisbeth had tried to protect her. He stroked Eva's hair, apologizing for failing her again and looking up, wondering what he needed to become stronger. Eventually, Eva spoke, acknowledging her mixed feelings and urging Adam not to blame himself. She recalled how her mother had jumped to save her, and despite the pain, she cherished the years spent as Lisbeth's daughter. Adam agreed, looking around the ancient Colosseum where humans once fought for their lives, pondering how they would escape. Suddenly, a voice interrupted them, expressing disbelief at seeing him alive. Turning around, they saw a stunning woman standing before them. She called out to Adam, running to embrace him. Adam felt out of place, while Eva pouted at the sight of this unfamiliar woman hugging her husband. They both realized something and, in unison, asked if she was calling Adam father. The woman, looking a bit sad, questioned why they didn't recognize her. Adam, as if struck by an illusion, realized who she was. He exclaimed that she was little Gear. All 13 legendary Valkyries, though not entirely human, viewed Adam as a father and Eva as a mother, especially after witnessing Adam's fierce battle against Zeus, the father of the gods. Gear asked what he was doing there and why he was alive, recalling the moment she witnessed her father and sister perish. Adam recounted everything up to the recent confrontation with the original god, Loki, which caused Eva to shed more tears. Gear's expression darkened as she processed the information. She expressed her anger at the gods, cursing them for their actions and the pain they had caused. Over time, Gear began to harbor a deep resentment towards her sisters. Adán tried to calm his daughter, reminding her to take a breath. Gear questioned why Loki had not been defeated, insisting that he would never be a match for her father. Eva pointed out that while Adán was strong, he was still human and could not harm a god without the right means. Gear slapped her forehead, realizing she had forgotten that detail. She chuckled, thinking that if Brunhild had been there, she would have scolded her for it. Gear reiterated that Loki would never be a rival for Adán. However, Adán remained silent, the weight of not being able to save Eva's mother pressing heavily on him. Gear reminded her father that the gods had broken their agreement. Both were intrigued by this revelation. Gear explained that by winning the tournament she, despite being a half-breed, was the last original goddess and it was her duty to destroy the gods. Yet, she acknowledged that some were not evil, and thus she had spared them, leaving them with their consciousness in exchange for their compliance. Eva was aware that Gear had destroyed the gods but was surprised to learn about the consciousness she had left behind. Gear then pointed out that Adán lacked the ability to harm gods. Adán nodded in agreement. Gear offered to be his weapon, wanting to rectify her mistake of believing those gods could change. Adán felt honored at the thought of fighting alongside his daughter. Gear smiled, raising her finger to signal what to do next. Adán mirrored her gesture, and as they did, a brilliant light enveloped the area, blinding Eva momentarily. When the light faded, Adán was holding a weapon, a beautiful spear, different from the one he had created before, which intrigued him. Gear communicated telepathically, explaining that each Valkyrie could only create one weapon, and hers was a spear. Adán was puzzled but accepted the situation. Once Gear returned to her normal form, she declared that they were now united, bound together until death. Eva felt a twinge of sadness, knowing she couldn't help her husband. Adán embraced her, offering words that eased the pain in her heart. He reassured her that he now had everything he needed: power, purpose, determination, and most importantly, her love. He promised to avenge her mother, even though he could not save her. Tears of joy filled Eva's eyes, knowing she was one of the reasons Adán was driven. That was enough for her, and she hugged him tightly. Adán then declared it was time to confront the one who had caused them so much pain. Gyr smiled, eager to make Loki pay for making her mother cry. She opened a portal, and the three of them stepped through, ready for retribution. They arrived in a frigid landscape, an Arctic realm filled with ice and snow. A voice welcomed them, belonging to Loki, the Nordic god who had taken Lisbeth's life. He claimed his abode was comfortable and that he had chosen it because few lived there. Adán confronted Loki, accusing him of making Eva cry and declaring that he would pay for it, brandishing his new spear. Loki taunted him, challenging him to try and warning him that it would not be easy, as he intended to rely on his hands and trickery this time. Adán instructed Eva to find a safe place, wanting to protect her from any collateral damage. Eva stepped back, praying for her husband's victory. Suddenly, a dome encased both Loki and Adán, and Loki stated that he did not want Adán to claim it was his fault after he was defeated. Adán was concerned for Eva, and with a spell, he made the ice beneath them more resilient. He prepared himself for battle. Loki was the first to charge into action, engaging in close combat. Adán effortlessly dodged all of Loki's attacks but sensed something unusual. He managed to evade a second Loki that emerged from the dome, attacking him with a double-edged sword. Loki laughed, mocking Aiden's expectations of a fair fight. Adán warned Eva to stay away from the dome, but suddenly he noticed an image of Loki appearing from one side of the dome. Confused, he watched as the image vanished, and the real Loki emerged, sword in hand, attempting to strike him while the other distracted him. Gyr's voice echoed in Aiden's mind, explaining that this was Sasaki's scanning ability. Adán pondered how he could copy what he saw and the movements of his opponents. Gyr observed that something had changed in Aiden's eyes, something different. Adán, feeling a bit fatigued, admitted that he had perfected them recently while launching an attack at the Loki in the dome, though he missed. He still had much to learn about using his spear. Gyr hypothesized that with his perfected eyes, Adán could now copy spatial abilities from opponents by observing them. Since they were now one, his eyes counted as hers, fulfilling the requirement of his power. Adán, eager to learn, requested Gyr to show him what she knew. In an instant, he recalled all the battles Gyr had faced, absorbing many techniques he was now ready to unleash. He launched himself at Loki, spear pointed downward, executing an attack. Loki dodged, but before he realized it, Adán had already unleashed a second strike that pierced the chest of the god. Adán silently thanked Sasaki for the technique as Loki transformed into ice and shattered it had been an ice clone. Loki, still hidden, acknowledged Aiden's skill, noting that it was impressive but not enough. Adán deduced that the real Loki was still in the dome and decided to surprise the Norse god. Thanks to Gyr, Adán could now copy powerful techniques, including those of Poseidon. The dome was destroyed, and a Loki formed from the flying debris, battered and bruised. Adán recognized this as the moment to finish the god. He leaped high above Loki, ready to deliver a decisive blow, the most powerful attack known to the god of the seas. Loki could not escape the onslaught, taking the full force of the attack. Eva, witnessing her husband defeat the god, joyfully leaped out of her hiding place. Adán smiled at her and gazed at the remains of Loki, surprised that anyone could survive such an assault. However, they were all astonished to see that this Loki also turned to ice and shattered. Eva, confused, asked what had just happened. Gyr explained that Loki was stronger than they had realized, even managing to deceive her. He had only wanted to test Aiden's strength. Adán and Eva fell silent, pondering the strength of the original gods and what challenges awaited them in the future. Meanwhile, Loki observed the battle from a distance, realizing they were now in danger. He stood beside Zeus, watching the fight between Adán and his clone. Zeus acknowledged the threat, noting that Adán had copied Loki's abilities. Loki, visibly annoyed despite his calm demeanor, expressed his frustration at the human's actions. Zeus, without turning to look, simply smirked at his brother's reaction. Days passed after the battle with the fake Loki. Gyr returned to her special dimension but assured Adán that she would sense when he needed her. Meanwhile, Adán and Eva began living together in Aiden's mansion. Eva was left speechless by the grandeur of the place and asked how he had acquired such wealth. Adán explained that when he was Issei, he had created a program called Opie Dragon. Eva immediately expressed her desire to see the show, as she had always enjoyed children's programs. Adán happily obliged, and as they watched, Eva felt a mix of emotions. She loved the show but also felt a twinge of sadness about its themes. She was too flushed, looking at Adán with a pout that, despite her intention to appear angry, only made her seem more adorable. Adán admired her beauty, noting how she was the only one who could change his indifferent expression into one of love. Feeling embarrassed by her husband's words, Eva turned her gaze away. She asked him about his life as Issei, curious to know more. Adán responded that it was fun. He made many friends and had good fights. Although he maintained his indifferent demeanor, Eva could tell when something affected him. She pressed on, asking if anything bad had happened during his time as Issei, snuggling into his chest. Adán sighed, indicating it was a long story. He began to share significant moments from his life as Issei, including how he saved Rias from an arranged marriage, his many adventures, and how he gained numerous wives as a dragon. He also revealed that in his life as Issei, he was indeed a dragon until the day he discovered all his wives in the arms of other men. The name Rias sounded familiar to Eva, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall where she had heard it before. Feeling a bit sad about how those girls had treated her beloved, she expressed her sympathy. Though she felt jealous and slightly upset, she understood that was his past. After being reincarnated from the depths of the Nordic hell, he might have been reborn without his memories. Adán apologized for having been with others, fearing that she would be angry after learning about his past. Eva reassured him, saying that what mattered was the present and that he shouldn't dwell on it too much. She embraced him with all the love she could muster. Adán returned the hug, calling her the best. 2 days later, the couple received a visit from people Adán had no desire to see. All the members of the alliance who had come to speak with the only one capable of confronting the gods. Azazel greeted him, asking if they could talk, but Adán simply closed the door and walked away. His attitude hurt everyone present, but it was Gabriel who hesitated, and this time it was Eva who opened the door. She scolded him for being rude, and as she stood there, all the men blushed at her beauty. The women were annoyed, questioning who this woman was, except for Rias, who was surprised to see the woman who had helped her find a dress. Eva greeted Rias, feeling a bit shy as she struggled to remember her name. Rias asked her what she was doing there, and Eva replied that she lived there with her boyfriend. The other girls were left in shock, realizing that Issei had found a replacement for them. Valley, unable to contain her anger, attempted to attack the blonde, but in an instant, Eva vanished from sight. Adán had used his power to stop time, placing her safely behind him. He looked at her with a fierce gaze and spoke words of protection. Chapter end. Broken Hearts. A few hours earlier at Lucifer's castle, Rias expressed to her companions from Issei's former team that they needed to speak with him. Kuroka agreed, stating they should explain what happened and seek his forgiveness, confident that he would understand. Valley, however, questioned why they were so fixated on him, suggesting they should move on with their lives since he had forgotten them for his work. Her pride was evident. Despite her feelings for the former brown-haired boy, she refused to show any weakness. Asia reminded Valley that she still loved Issei, while Kaneko echoed her sentiment, pointing out that if she didn't care, she wouldn't be there. Tiamat added that they had made mistakes, but that didn't mean they shouldn't try to win back their beloved's heart. Rias insisted that they needed to show Issei that they only had eyes for him, believing that with time he would accept them again. Vala dismissed their hopes, expressing her frustration and sorrow over their lost relationship, feeling guilty for the betrayal that had occurred. Valley, a descendant of the current Lucifer, finally revealed her pain and remorse for what she had done to her ex-husband. Tears began to flow as she realized the impact of her actions. However, she felt warmth as all the girls from Issei's former team embraced her with love and understanding. Rias reassured Valley that she shouldn't feel guilty, as they were all aware of the risks of their actions. Aquino added that the girl Issei was with now didn't compare to their beauty. Valley resolved to make Issei forget that girl and return to them, expressing her gratitude to her friends. After a while, the faction leaders concluded their meeting and decided to convince Issei to help them in what would be their toughest battle yet. Serchet led the way to Issei's house, and with a transportation circle, they arrived at his doorstep. Kuroka knocked, but the door was opened by the now blonde Issei. The girls were taken aback by his new appearance, but their thoughts were interrupted when Adán, Issei's current partner, closed the door in front of Kuroka. Azazel remarked that they had tried, but Rias urged them not to give up so easily. She knocked on the door again, and this time it was opened by Eva, the girl who had helped her find a dress. The sight of Eva made all the men blush, while the girls were annoyed, questioning who she was. Rias, feeling shy, greeted Eva, who seemed to have forgotten her name. When Rias introduced herself, the revelation that Eva lived with Issei shocked everyone, as it meant he had moved on. Valley, unable to contain her anger at the sight of the woman she believed was taking Issei from her, lunged at Eva with harmful intentions. However, in an instant, Adán used his powers to stop time, placing Eva safely behind him and glaring at Valley. The room fell silent, stunned by the blonde's speed and the threat directed at one of Issei's former loves. Odin intervened, requesting that they simply talk and not harm Aiden's partner. Adán, however, insisted. There was nothing to discuss and demanded they leave. Kiba pleaded with Issei to talk, but Adán firmly stated that Issei no longer existed. Feeling a gentle hand on his shoulder, Adán turned to see Eva smiling at him, silently urging him to accept their request. He relented but warned that if anyone laid a hand on Eva, he would destroy them all. Though brief, this chapter aimed to clarify Vala's attitude towards Eva and express gratitude for the support received. Chapter end. Hello, I know it's been a month since I last posted and I wanted to explain why. My university has been overwhelming with exams. I've had 12 in 4 weeks. They insisted on finishing online classes quickly, and now we're facing the consequences. But don't worry, once I finish I'll start posting regularly again. Thank you for the support, and if you notice missing images in some chapters, it's because Wattpad removed them for unknown reasons. I apologize for the delay, but new chapters are coming soon. Good night. Chapter end. Unwanted alliance? Inside Issei's house, despite feeling annoyed by the presence of the faction leaders, he maintained an indifferent demeanor while Eva sat beside him, smiling sincerely. The atmosphere was tense as they all gathered in the living room. Eva asked what brought them to visit. He spoke with a warm voice that could calm even the most stubborn child. Serchitz cleared his throat, indicating that he needed to focus. He explained to Issei that they were aware of the true gods and wanted to form an alliance to confront the situation threatening the world together. Adán introduced himself, stating that he was once Issei but had regained his memories and was now Adán. He questioned why they believed he needed their help to defeat the original gods. Azazel acknowledged Aiden's capabilities but reminded him that Zeus had defeated him in the eyes of the world, and while he had won, it was Zeus who ultimately fell. Adán accepted this but asserted that his eyes were now perfect, and he had many new tricks up his sleeve. Odin acknowledged that with those eyes, Adán was stronger than all of them combined. However, he challenged Adán to consider whether he could defeat all the gods together, including Poseidon, Shiva, Zeus and Hercules if they united against him. Upon hearing Hercules' name, Eva felt a wave of sadness wash over her, and Adán lowered his head slightly. They both understood that Adán would eventually have to confront Hercules, who, despite being a god, was like a son to him, a son he was immensely proud of. Eva, feeling the weight of the situation, expressed her need to leave. It pained her to know that Adán would have to fight Hercules, and she was aware that he was forced to consider killing him. She had developed an unconditional love for humanity, and Hercules was part of that. Odin apologized for the harsh truth, but he knew it was necessary. Adán was angry that his wife had left in tears, yet he recognized that the father of all was right and understood the obligation he faced. He cursed under his breath, expressing his frustration that others were right while he felt indifferent. Serchitz asked if Adán would allow them to fight alongside him. Although Adán was not entirely in agreement, he understood that without Regenleaf, who had given him the ability to harm gods with his bare hands, he now faced limitations and would need to rely on weapons and not all of his techniques. Adán questioned how he could trust them. Rhea stood firm, acknowledging that they might have made mistakes, but they had fought together in a war, proving that he could rely on them. Adán regarded her with indifference, yet he had to admit that during the war with Thryaxa, they had never left him to fight alone. He sighed and agreed to form an alliance, but he made it clear that once this was over, they would not return to his home. Serchitz accepted this and everyone felt a sense of relief. The men were eager to fight alongside their great companion again, while the women held on to hope of reclaiming him. In Olympus, a well-built man walked, following some noises. It was Ares, the god of war, who sensed something was off since their regeneration. Valley prepared herself, aware that her opponent would not be an easy one. However, a sense of confidence surged within her, suggesting that victory was possible. She was taken aback when she heard a roar emanating from the massive weapon wielded by the red-haired warrior. Alceo called upon the powerful Nemean lion, declaring that it would lend him its strength. The weapon began to transform, taking on a more intimidating lion-like form, while a tattoo started to emerge on Hercules. What astonished Valley even more were the words that followed. Alceo announced that this was Hercules' first labor, the Nemean lion. Valley realized that the figure before her was not an ordinary fighter. He was the original Hercules, a true god. Albion urged Valley to quickly divide her attack. He sensed that if Hercules' strike connected fully, it would spell disaster for her. With a fierce strike to the ground, Hercules unleashed a powerful shockwave in the shape of a lion, hurtling toward Valley at incredible speed. Valley focused, determined to divide her attack. The impact of the attack was unlike anything she had ever experienced, shattering her armor and revealing her vulnerable form. The girl lay on the ground, her eyes dull, defeated in a single blow. Albion, concerned for his companion, called out to Valley, urging her to respond. Despite his disapproval of her actions, he had grown fond of her and didn't want to witness her demise. Alcio, the red-haired warrior, commanded her to stay down and atone for her past crimes before turning to leave. Valley, still on the ground and gravely injured, weakly declared that she had to win. Hearing her words, the red-haired warrior turned back, curious if she still had the strength to fight. Slowly, Valley began to rise, unsteady on her feet. Albion pointed out that she had already lost and needed to accept it. Valley retorted that as long as she was alive, she had not lost, and if she could defeat an original god, perhaps she would be forgiven. Albion insisted she had no chance, to which Valley replied that nothing had ever stopped her before. Albion laughed, acknowledging her determination, and pledged to stand by her until the end. With gratitude, Valley prepared herself, grounding her resolve and reciting a powerful chant to unleash her full potential. She declared herself the White Dragon Emperor, destined to bring law to darkness and to dominate with infinite destruction. As she transformed, her body glowed, and when the light faded, she wore a new, more intimidating armor, prompting a smile from Alcio. Meanwhile, Adam watched from a window while dining with his girlfriend Eva. He sensed Valley's aura intensifying and believed she was in battle. Eva, curious, asked about Valley, and Adam suggested she practice remembering names. Just then Gear appeared, looking worried and sad, revealing that she had found another. The tension in the room was palpable as Adam approached Gear, asking if she was sure about her decision. After her affirmation, they performed the summoning ritual, and Gear transformed into a spear, opening a portal for them to confront the only god Adam wished to avoid. Back with Valley and Hercules, Alcio warned her that if they continued, he would have no choice but to end her life, something he disliked doing without reason. Valley stood her ground, refusing to flee, and launched herself at Hercules, channeling all her strength and the power she had stolen from him, fueled by her will to win. She declared it was time to end the fight. Alcio summoned the seventh labor of Hercules, transforming his weapon into a form resembling an enraged bull, his tattoos expanding across his body. He challenged her to attack with all her might. Their clash produced a thunderous sound, enveloping the area in smoke. As the smoke cleared, Valley lay unconscious on the ground, her armor shattered and her arms injured. Alcio acknowledged her strength, stating it had been a good fight but it was over. He raised his weapon once more, ready to finish her off, but before he could strike, Adam intervened, having saved her just in time. Hercules and Adam exchanged intense gazes. Adam smiled, feeling like a hero. Alcio, amused, asked if Valley was a friend of his. Adam replied that she was somewhat of a friend and assured Alcio he meant no trouble. Alcio relaxed slightly, and Adam inquired about his identity. Alcio revealed that he was a human who had ascended to divinity. Adam felt relieved that one of his sons had not succumbed to the arrogance of divine power. He opened a portal to leave, advising Alcio to unleash his full strength when the time came, as he would do the same. After this encounter, Adam took Valley to the underworld, specifically to the Phoenix family, who welcomed him warmly, though Ravel could not face her former love. Mrs. Phoenix questioned his identity and intentions. Adam introduced himself, explaining that he was once known as Issei and that he had brought Valley, who had been injured in a fight, seeking their help. Mrs. Phoenix hesitated, aware of Valley's past, but Adam insisted he understood what had happened and still sought assistance. In a flashback, Adam recalled a conversation with Eva in their mansion, where she urged him to get along with the Phoenix family despite their differences. Before Adán could finish, Eva placed her finger on his mouth with a gentle smile. She understood the pain he had endured and expressed that, although it was not the same, she had forgiven him. Adán reminded her that at that moment, he had no memories, making it different for him. Seeing her initial approach fail, Eva decided to try another tactic. She clasped her hands together in a pleading gesture and asked Adán to try to get along with them for her sake. Faced with her earnestness, Adán could only agree, acknowledging that after all their time together, he had never won an argument against her. As the flashback ended, Adán recalled his promise to try to get along with them, despite his reservations. He entrusted Valley to some of Phoenix's subordinates and without saying much more, attempted to leave. Mrs. Phoenix then knelt before him, offering sincere apologies on behalf of her family for her daughter's actions. She recognized that Adán was the hero who had saved them from the apocalypse beast and felt that her daughter had not treated him with the loyalty and fidelity he deserved. Adán reassured her not to worry and urged her to lift her head, reiterating his intention to try to get along with them. Without further ado, he opened a portal and returned to his mansion, where his girlfriend, now his wife, was eating cereal while watching a show. He commented on her choice of program, teasing her about it. Eva playfully pouted, recalling how he had acted in the past. Adán admitted that he felt embarrassed about some of his previous antics, including his declaration of wanting to be the king of a harem. Eva listened quietly, and when he acknowledged it was a silly dream, she suggested that if it was still his dream, it wouldn't bother her. To silence her, Adán kissed her, declaring that she was the only one he would love forever, willing to leave paradise for her. Eva blushed at his words, and he promised he would do it 1,000 times for her. She expressed her love for him, and they shared a tender moment, with Eva resting his head on her lap. As they enjoyed their time together, Eva brought up school, asking if Adán would be attending. He explained that he had dropped out after the tragic loss of his parents during a trip. Eva, feeling a mix of sympathy and excitement, revealed that she had received a scholarship to a school in Japan, which he had attended before. She suggested he could re-enroll and join her, feeling hopeful about their future together. Adán affirmed that wherever she went he would follow. Grateful, Eva kissed him on the forehead, and they both thought about how incredible their school life would be together. In a distant realm, the false god of destruction, Shiva, lay on the ground, his eyes blank. The other deities of this realm had also been subdued. The Indian gods, once proud of their power, had been overwhelmed by two beings each with 4 arms. One had violet skin, while the other appeared more ordinary. One of them kicked the unconscious Shiva, expressing disappointment at the ease of their victory. The other declared that they should leave and not return unless they wished to be annihilated. As they tossed Shiva's unconscious body, his 3 wives managed to catch him before he fell. Parvati, in tears, pleaded for him to respond, while Kali vowed to never forgive his attackers. However, Shiva urged Kali not to fight, warning her that they were too strong. Durga advised them to leave, acknowledging their defeat. Though heartbroken, the 3 women carried Shiva away, leaving the 2 men as the new rulers of the Indian gods. One of the men, now identified as Rudra, expressed his disappointment at the lack of challenge they faced. He noted that Shiva was the only one who could have posed a threat to them. The monkey that created that nameless god was now identified as the original god, Shiva. He lay down, contemplating the strength of Adam. Images of the battle between Adam and Zeus flashed through his mind, and his blood boiled to the point that flames erupted from his body. Shiva laughed heartily, vowing that this time he would not allow that foolish old man to get ahead of him. Instead, he would be the one to finish off that monkey, reducing him to ashes. "Don't worry, I just want to distract myself." "Ares, is that true?" The other man remained silent and continued training. Aiden's house. The members of the factions had left, leaving Adán and Eva alone. Eva looked very sad, it was clear she had been crying. Adán asked if everything was all right, expressing his concern for her. Eva hesitated, saying it was necessary for him to do something. Adán replied that he didn't know what would happen and wished he didn't have to do it. Eva urged him to promise that he wouldn't let it cause him pain, embracing him and resting her face against his chest. Olympo. Ares reassured Hercules, saying that no man could compare to him, not even that worm. Hercules became annoyed by the comment and insisted Ares respect the man who had brought the mighty Zeus to his knees. Ares fell silent, realizing the weight of Hercules' words. Hercules, also known as Adán, vowed that no matter what happened in the upcoming fight, he would give everything, and whether he won or lost, he would always be his father. Adán declared that he would always be his son. Chapter end. Valley vs. Heracles Part 1. A few days had passed since the faction meeting with Adán. Valley, in her armor, was deep in thought about everything that had happened recently. The true Issei and the original gods were in a snowy area. She felt at ease until she heard a distant roar. Valley wondered what that was before accelerating toward the source of the sounds. Instead of encountering a monster as she expected, she found one that was already dead, with a red-haired man standing before it. He had defeated the creature. Valley asked who he was. The man introduced himself as Alcio, explaining that there was a nearby village and the monster had been approaching it. Hercules always introduced himself as a human among others, not by the name given to him by the gods. Valley noticed that the monster had been as strong as a high-class demon, yet Alceo had defeated it effortlessly. She complimented him on his strength. Alceo thanked her, acknowledging that he believed he was strong. Valley proposed a fight, but Alceo questioned why she wanted to fight. Unlike other gods or beings he knew, he never fought without a reason. Valley simply wanted to have fun. Alceo explained that he only fought against bad people, not for amusement. Though Valley was good-hearted, her addiction to fighting sometimes overwhelmed her, and she began to provoke him. She remarked that since he had killed her creation, he should now defeat her. Alceo's tone shifted to one more intimidating as he responded that he would kill her. Without further ado, Valley activated her armor, and Alceo wielded his mace as they charged at each other. The fight was fierce. Valley was faster, but she quickly realized her strikes were not causing much damage to Alceo. In a moment of carelessness, he landed a powerful blow to her face, sending her flying and shattering her helmet. Albion, her dragon companion, noted that she had underestimated him. Valley acknowledged this. Before she knew it, Alceo was right in front of her, ready to strike with the same force. The sound of her armor divided Alceo's power, but even so, the blow Valley received was still very strong. Albion observed that even with his power divided, Alceo was formidable. Valley was bleeding from her mouth, clearly injured. She told Albion that he didn't need to say it. From her armor, small dragons emerged, surrounding Alceo and attempting to divide his power. However, with a single swing of his mace he shattered them. Valley realized she was in trouble, a bead of sweat forming on her brow. Albion suggested they devise a strategy. Alceo offered her a chance to leave, promising he wouldn't kill her, as he preferred to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Valley, however, declared that she would never flee from a battle, no matter how slim her chances of victory might be. That statement reminded Hercules of someone he had fought long ago and the words he had shared with her. Rudra warned Shiva not to underestimate his first battle, recalling how close he had come to losing his life. In his second fight, he had failed to anticipate the assassin's strategies, which ultimately led to his demise. Despite the reminder, Shiva felt an overwhelming excitement. Now that he wielded the Tandava Karma, he no longer risked his own life. He was determined to make his opponent's eyes explode before the old man had done. Rudra thought to himself that his friend would never change. Meanwhile, in the underworld, a woman with silver hair entered the chamber of the Mal Lucifer. Cersex greeted her, curious about the reason for her visit. Griffia explained that they had a problem with the Indian gods faction. Cersex inquired if they had rejected a new proposal to unite against the original gods, but Griffia revealed that the situation was far worse. She asked him to follow her. After a brief walk, they arrived at an underworld hospital filled with gods and beasts from the Indian faction. Many were receiving treatment for burns that, for some reason, did not heal with even a single drop of phoenix tears. At the end of the room lay the leader of the Indian gods, wrapped in bandages. Cersex approached him, concerned about what had happened. Parvati explained that while they were resting, two individuals had entered their realm, claiming it belonged to Shiva. They had attacked the gods and despite being outnumbered, they had managed to subdue the entire faction. Durga added that neither Indra, Vishnu, nor her beloved Shiva could stand against those foes, pleading for help to reclaim their kingdom. Shiva, however, expressed doubt. He had felt it during his battle with the other Shiva. The opponent had not been using his full power and they could not win. Griffia revealed that the original gods wanted to reclaim their past kingdoms. This revelation resonated among the four Indian gods, prompting them to seek clarification. Shiva realized that all the gods they had known were false gods while those two were the original Shiva and Rudra. Cersex confirmed that each god had their original counterpart. Shiva then questioned what would happen to the demons. Griffia insisted that there was no time for speculation. They needed to call upon someone who could truly help them. After some time, Griffia visited Adam's home but found only Eve there. She greeted Eve and inquired about Adam's whereabouts. Eve explained that he had gone out with Gear. Griffia clicked her tongue in annoyance. Eve sensed something was wrong and asked if there was an issue. Griffia, feeling she could confide in Adam's wife, revealed that their faction had recently been attacked by the Indian gods. Eve was surprised to learn that Griffia was unaware of the situation, as Gear had informed them and taken Adam with him afterward. Griffia asked if Adam had gone to fight those gods, but Eve clarified that they were seeking an ally who could significantly help them and restore balance. This left Griffia confused about who Adam was looking for. Meanwhile, in the alliance chamber where Shiva was present, discussions were underway about their next steps. Odin urged Vali to confront the original Hercules and share his thoughts. Vali, nursing his injured arm, admitted that he doubted he could defeat Hercules even with 1,000 years of training. Beelzebub expressed concern about their dire situation, while Azazel noted that for Vali to concede that point, their opponents were formidable. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room, questioning why they were giving up so easily. Everyone turned to see a handsome young man with blonde hair holding a spear. Rias felt a wave of relief wash over her upon seeing Adam. Azazel asked where he had been, and Adam explained that he had accepted an alliance with them but would be straightforward. As they would only be a burden. He had sought someone who could help balance the scales. Odin asked who that person was, and as footsteps approached, Adam invited everyone to greet the newcomer.